Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive
Yeah.
into defeating excusitis.
The failure disease.
That's right, The Failure Disease by
Oh.
Christopher Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think if you think back to the last couple of chapters,
Yeah.
where we were looking at things like health excusitis and age excusitis,
Yeah.
and you think about how often we use those as an excuse, I think we probably all found ourselves nodding along a little bit like, oh yeah, I've done that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, get ready, because this chapter, I think, hits even closer to home.
Yeah.
So this is Chapter 5, Gender Excusitis.
I find it interesting how Christopher Walker frames this.
Yeah.
He's not pointing fingers,
Right.
but he's showing us how deeply ingrained these excuses are.
Yeah.
And we may not even realize that we're using our gender as a shield to
Yeah.
prevent us from going after what we really want.
Have you ever thought like, well, I can't do that because I'm a woman, or that's just not what guys do?
Oh, yeah.
That's gender excusitis.
Yeah, it's like we're operating from these invisible rule books, these societal expectations of what's appropriate for men and women.
Exactly.
And the scary part is we often internalize these rules without even questioning them.
And Walker starts off the chapter by tracing the roots of gender excusitis back to, well, basically like the dawn of time.
Right.
I mean, history and culture are jam-packed with narratives that box us into specific roles based on gender.
Right. It's like we're inheriting these preconceived notions of what men and women are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And this ties in directly with Carol Dweck's concept of a fixed mindset
Yeah.
in her book, Mindset,
Yeah.
The New Psychology of Success.
Right.
It's the belief that our abilities are fixed. They're predetermined by things like gender.
Right.
And that we can't change them.
So I'm a woman, therefore I'm not cut out for leadership roles.
Right.
Or I'm a man, so expressing emotions is weakness.
Yeah.
It's very limiting.
It is, because it traps us in this cycle of self-doubt.
Right.
If you believe you're limited by your gender, you're less likely to try to break free.
Absolutely. And this brings us to one of the most common, I think, manifestations of gender excusitis, especially for women, the I can't because I'm a woman
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah.
And it seems like it pops up in all areas of life, but it's especially potent in fields that are traditionally dominated by men, like leadership, STEM entrepreneurship. It's like this invisible barrier, that assumption that women are just not as capable.
But I think what's fascinating is that Walker doesn't just present this excuse.
Right.
He actively dismantles it.
Yeah.
And he does that by showcasing these powerful stories of women who defied these expectations and proved that gender is not a limitation.
One of the most striking examples for me, I think, is Marie Curie.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about breaking barriers.
Yeah.
She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, and the only person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different scientific fields.
Wow.
If you haven't read her biography, Madame Curie, written by her daughter Eve Curie, I highly recommend it. It paints such a vivid picture of her determination and how she navigated a world that wasn't exactly welcoming to women in science.
Marie Curie's story is a perfect illustration of how a growth mindset can trump gender excusitis.
Absolutely.
She didn't let societal norms dictate her potential. She just went after her passion.
Yeah.
With this relentless dedication.
Yeah, and it's not just historical figures, right? Think about Malala Yousafzai, the youngest Nobel Prize laureate.
Right.
In her memoir, I Am Malala, she shares her journey advocating for girls' education in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Talk about facing challenges.
Right.
But she refused to be silenced. She defied these societal pressures and even risked her own safety to fight for what she believed in.
Her courage is just a powerful reminder that gender should never be a barrier to education or pursuing your dreams.
And speaking of empowering women, we can't forget Sheryl Sandberg in her book, Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead.
Right.
It's a call to action for women to push past those internalized beliefs that hold them back from leadership roles. It's about recognizing your worth and leading into opportunities, even when self-doubt whispers, I can't.
I find Lean In so valuable because it acknowledges the systemic challenges women face,
Right.
while also emphasizing the importance of individual agency.
Yeah.
It's recognizing external barriers and working on the internal ones.
So we've seen how that I can't because I'm a woman excusitis plays out.
Right.
Christopher Walker makes it clear that men are not immune to this failure disease.
Oh, absolutely. Men experience gender excusitis too,
Right.
just in different ways.
Yeah.
Men are often trapped in this I can't because I'm a man mentality, especially when it comes to expressing emotions or pursuing careers that are seen as traditionally feminine.
Like those societal expectations of men being strong and silent.
Right.
It limits their emotional range and ability to connect authentically.
Yeah. Think about a man who's passionate about early childhood education, but hesitates to pursue it because of the stigma.
Right. Or a man who desperately needs emotional support but bottles it up because
No.
real men don't cry.
It's heartbreaking because those limiting beliefs can have really serious consequences for their well-being and their relationships.
And this brings to mind the incredible work of Brené Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Her book, Daring Greatly,
Right.
I think is a game changer.
Yeah.
She dismantles this myth that vulnerability is weakness.
Right.
And she argues that it's actually the key to courage, connection, and wholehearted living
Yeah.
for men and women.
Brown's research shows that when men buy into that "I can't because I'm a man" mentality, they're essentially cutting themselves off from a fundamental part of the human experience.
Yeah, it's like living in an emotional straitjacket.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Unable to fully express themselves or build those deep connections.
So we've established that gender excusitis impacts both genders, though in different ways.
Yeah.
But how does this actually affect our growth both personally and professionally?
Well, think about it this way. When we let these limiting beliefs dictate our choices, we're essentially closing ourselves off from a world of possibilities. We might avoid applying for a dream job, shy away from leadership opportunities, or even stifle our creative impulses, all because we've internalized these messages about what we should or shouldn't be doing based on our gender.
Yeah, we're playing by somebody else's rule book.
Exactly.
And it's outdated.
Yeah.
And pretty limiting.
And the impact can be profound. It can sabotage careers,
Right.
damage relationships, even impact our sense of self-worth.
Like we're settling for this smaller version of ourselves.
Right.
You know, a version dictated by societal expectations rather than our own desires and capabilities.
I'm reminded of Katty Kay and Claire Shipman's book, The Confidence Code.
Yeah.
They argue that a lack of confidence is a major barrier for women.
Right.
And it often stems from these internalized messages that they're just not as capable as men.
Right.
But they also emphasize that confidence is a skill that can be learned and cultivated.
Yeah.
And that's where real empowerment begins.
Yeah. Reclaiming our power.
Right.
Recognizing that we don't have to play by those outdated rules.
Exactly. It's about rewriting the script, defining success on our own terms, and daring to step outside those limitations.
Which brings us to another fascinating concept that Walker introduces, the "I wish I was" mentality.
Right.
It's like the ultimate expression of gender excusitis.
Yeah, it's like saying, I wish I was a man so I could be taken seriously as a leader.
Right.
Or I wish I was a woman so people wouldn't judge me for expressing my emotions.
Right.
It's this dangerous belief that gender alone is the key to success and fulfillment.
And it's so disempowering because it puts the power outside of ourselves.
Right.
My gender is my destiny.
Yeah.
Rather than recognizing we have the ability to shape our own lives.
Right.
Define success on our own terms.
While societal structures and biases certainly play a role, they don't have to define us.
Right.
We have the power to challenge those limitations, to rewrite the narratives, and create a world where gender is no longer a barrier to our potential.
I love that.
Yeah.
So in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore how this "I wish I was" mentality plays out for both men and women.
Yeah.
And more importantly, how to start dismantling it.
Right.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
So we uncovered this "I wish I was" mentality that Walker talks about.
Right.
Like gender excusitis on steroids.
Yeah, almost as if we're looking at the world through this distorted lens, thinking if only we were a different gender, everything would magically fall into place.
But as we dig deeper, we see that this mentality actually plays out differently for men and women, doesn't it?
Absolutely. For women, it often stems from being in environments where leadership and power have historically been male-dominated.
Yeah.
They look around and see men in positions of authority, and they think, well, I wish I was a man. Maybe then I'd have a shot at that promotion.
Yeah, it's like they're buying into the myth that leadership is a masculine trait.
Right.
Rather than, recognizing their own unique strengths and leadership qualities.
And this is where role models become so important. Christopher Walker highlights inspiring figures like Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. She faced a ton of challenges as a woman in a male-dominated field, but instead of succumbing to that "I wish I was a man" mentality, she focused on developing her skills, improving her competence.
Yeah.
And her story is really a testament to what's possible when you break free from those beliefs.
Her autobiography, My Life in Full, is a must-read.
Absolutely.
It really shows you that you don't have to change who you are to succeed in a world that doesn't always embrace your differences.
Now, for men, the I wish I was mentality often manifests in situations where emotional expression or nurturing is undervalued.
Right.
They might see women being celebrated for their empathy and think, well, maybe if I was a woman, people would take my feelings seriously.
Right.
Like sensitivity is somehow a feminine trait and therefore not acceptable for men.
Mm-hmm.
And this can lead to men feeling trapped in a role where they're expected to be stoic and strong even when they're struggling.
Yeah. I'm thinking about a man who wants to be a stay-at-home dad, but he's hesitant because of societal expectations.
Right.
Or a man who's going through a really hard time but feels like he can't reach out for support because he has to be the rock.
Yeah, these are classic examples of how gender excusitis can limit men's emotional expression and even impact their mental health.
Yeah, it's like they're denying themselves permission to be fully human.
Right.
Which again brings us back to Brene Brown.
Yeah.
And her work in The Gifts of Imperfection.
Right.
Embracing vulnerability is essential for living a wholehearted life.
Yeah.
And building those authentic connections.
Absolutely.
Her research shows that men who suppress their emotions often end up feeling isolated, lonely, and disconnected.
It's like they're building walls around themselves, afraid to let anyone see their true selves.
So we've seen how this I wish I was mentality can trap both men and women.
Right.
In these limiting roles.
Yeah.
But Christopher Walker doesn't just leave us with the problem. He offers solutions.
Yeah, he outlines this roadmap for overcoming gender excusitis.
Yeah.
And really stepping into our full potential.
And it all starts with awareness, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The first step to breaking free from any limiting belief is to shine a light on it.
Right.
Become aware of those moments when those I wish I was thoughts creep in.
It's about catching yourself in those moments of self-doubt and asking, wait a minute, is this belief actually true?
Yeah.
Or is it just something I've absorbed from society?
It's about recognizing those thoughts as products of conditioning, not inherent truths about our capability.
And once you've identified those beliefs, the next step is to actively challenge them.
Right. Don't just passively accept what society tells you men and women should or shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Question those assumptions. Push back against those limitations.
Like if somebody tells you engineering is not for girls.
Right.
Don't just take their word for it. Do your research. Talk to women who are thriving in STEM careers.
Find evidence that disproves that belief.
And same goes for men,
Right.
who are told to suppress their emotions.
Yeah.
Challenge that.
Seek out role models like Brene Brown, who advocate for vulnerability and emotional intelligence.
It's about rewriting the script.
Yeah.
Both internally and externally.
And speaking of rewriting the script, Walker also emphasizes the importance of redefining success.
Yeah.
Instead of getting caught up in those narrow, often gender-based definitions of what it means to be successful.
Right.
It's about figuring out what truly matters to you, independent of societal expectations.
So instead of thinking, I need to be a CEO to be successful,
Right.
maybe your definition of success is starting a small business that allows you to be your own boss.
Right. Or maybe it's about finding a career that aligns with your values and allows you to make a positive impact.
Yeah, it's about defining success on your own terms, not letting society dictate your path.
And this is where things start to get really exciting, because when you break free from those preconceived notions, a whole world of possibilities opens up.
You're stepping off the beaten path and forging your own trail.
Exactly. And finally, Christopher Walker reminds us of the power of role models.
Yeah.
Finding inspiration from those who have defied gender stereotypes and paved the way for others.
We've already mentioned some incredible examples.
Yeah.
Marie Curie, Malala Yousafzai, Indra Nooyi.
Yeah.
Their stories are a powerful reminder that anything is possible when you break free from those beliefs.
And it's not just about famous figures. Think about the everyday heroes in your own life who are challenging gender norms and living authentically.
Right.
Maybe it's your friend who's a stay-at-home dad defying those traditional gender roles, or your sister who's a successful engineer in a male-dominated field, or your neighbor who's breaking down barriers in their chosen profession.
Surround yourself with people who inspire you.
Absolutely.
And remind you that you don't have to be limited by societal expectations.
So we've got awareness challenging stereotypes, redefining success, and seeking out role models.
Right.
These are really powerful tools for overcoming gender excusitis and creating a life that's authentic and fulfilling.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be moments of doubt,
Yeah.
times when those old stereotypes try to creep back in. But the key is to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely.
Keep believing in yourself.
And keep surrounding yourself with people who support your growth.
Yeah, because ultimately breaking free from gender excusitis is about so much more than just individual empowerment.
Right. It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive regardless of gender.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What is one small step that you can take today to challenge gender excusitis in your own life?
It could be as simple as noticing those "I wish I was" thoughts and questioning their validity. Or it could be something bolder, like speaking up against a sexist comment or applying for a job you thought was out of your league.
Remember, every small action counts.
It does.
We each have the power to create a more equitable world, one step at a time.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the broader societal implications of overcoming gender excusitis and how we can collectively create a world where everyone is free to be their authentic selves and reach their full potential. So stay tuned.
All right, so welcome back to our final part of this deep dive on gender excusitis from Chapter 5 of Defeating Excusitis, the Failure Disease by Christopher Walker.
Yeah.
And, we've been talking about how insidious this can be on like a personal level.
Right.
But, let's zoom out a little bit. What about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
How does a world riddled with gender excusitis affect us all?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. It's almost like a chain reaction,
Yeah.
When individuals are held back by these beliefs, it creates this ripple effect that impacts society as a whole.
It's like we're all playing on a team, but half the players are told that they can't use their full strength because of some arbitrary rule.
Exactly.
It reduces the potential of the entire team.
Yeah, when we limit opportunities based on gender. We're essentially cutting ourselves off from this vast pool of talent, innovation, creativity.
I mean, imagine a world where the tech industry was just as welcoming to women as it is to men.
Right.
We might already have solutions to problems we haven't even encountered yet.
Yeah, think about it. If we encourage men to embrace caregiving roles without the stigma,
Right.
Wouldn't families and children benefit immensely from that?
It's like we're missing out on all these contributions because we're stuck in these outdated notions of what men and women should be doing.
And it's not just about fairness.
Right.
Although that's obviously important.
Of course.
It's about maximizing our collective potential.
Yeah.
When everyone is empowered to contribute their unique talents and perspectives, we create a more dynamic, innovative, and compassionate world.
Christopher Walker doesn't really offer like a magic solution,
Right.
For this societal change. But he makes it clear that recognizing and challenging gender excusitis is like a crucial first step.
Yeah, he's right. It's like laying the foundation for a more equitable future.
Where do we even begin? Like, it feels so huge.
It does, but remember that quote from Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In?
Yeah.
She said, "In the future, there will be no female leaders. There will just be leaders."
I love that.
It starts with each of us challenging those beliefs, both in ourselves and the world around us.
So maybe it's like speaking up when you hear a sexist joke or questioning those boys will be boys excuses.
Or actively seeking out and supporting businesses and organizations that promote gender equality.
Right. And let's not forget the power of role models.
Absolutely.
We've talked about so many inspiring examples in this deep dive.
Right.
People who defied expectations and paved the way for others.
Yeah.
We need to celebrate those stories.
Yeah, share them with the next generation.
Yeah.
Show young people that anything is possible.
Right.
Regardless of gender.
Yeah. It's about creating that culture where differences are celebrated.
Right.
Where everyone feels valued and respected. And where gender is no longer a barrier to achieving your full potential.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful vision to end on.
It is.
It's not going to be easy.
Right.
But it's a future worth fighting for.
So as we wrap up this episode of Dialogue Dimensions, what's one thing you can do today to challenge gender excusitis in your life or the world around you?
Maybe share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into gender excusitis. We hope you found it insightful and empowering.
Yeah.
Remember to subscribe to Dialogue Dimensions like this video, share it with a friend, and leave a comment below. And let us know your thoughts. Until next time, keep challenging those limitations and embrace your full potential.
Absolutely.